Hi, everyone. Welcome to Daily Revelations. So we are in Nehemiah 3, and you looked at some of the trades of the people that were working the wall, which kind of leads to what I'm going to talk about today. So there were anything from priests to jewelers to tradesmen to officials, and sometimes it connotated an official, and it probably was people that worked under that official or were from that region that came in representation of him. But these were people from a lot of different backgrounds, not always in agreement on everything. But the one thing they were in agreement was that God was calling them to work on this wall. And a word that kept, it's actually 4 times, and in my Bible translation, when I went back to a different translation, it didn't have it as it wasn't capitalized, but in my translation it was angle. And it was a capital A, and I thought, what does this have to do with this building project? Because it says they built up to the angle, and then from that angle, somebody else started, but it was like a prominent thing. Well, they were big angles. They were bending or meeting points on the wall. And so in verses 19, 20, 24, and 25, they talk about these angles. And it just something that God stirred in my heart when I was looking at that was, and in my biblical theology class, we were talking about the canon of scripture and how there's denominations and different lines of Christianity that don't always agree on everything. And oftentimes our work as Christians doesn't always completely, do we think that is something that someone should be called by God to do, or we can question somebody because we can nitpick. But the reality is there's so much that we do agree on that God is calling us to do corporately as his body. And if we forget that is what our bigger calling is, instead of picking out the things that we don't agree on, it's actually going to make our work, our cumulative work, not progress. I was thinking about how it related to the wall in Nehemiah. And, each person was building their own wall. They weren't going over to the other person's wall and saying, well, you really should have put that rock there instead of here. No, they were all working so hard. They were so focused on what they were doing that they worked until they hit that end point where they said, this is where our work ends and your work starts. And that's it. And can't we be so focused instead of what our neighbor's not doing right as to what I should be doing well, so that my work, when God looks at it, says, well done, good and faithful servant. That's what my job is. Not to say, well, you're not doing your wall right. We will meet. God butts our two works together, however well they're done. And he looks at our work as our work. Now, if he calls us out to help somebody else and to critique them, that's completely different. But it's done in love as well. It's not done in the context of, well, my work is better than yours, or I can't work with you because we don't see eye to eye on every single bit of theology. No, work is work. And so I want you to take that to mind today when you think about just how to respond to others and how to do the things that God has called you to do. And maybe somebody's questioning your work, and it isn't their place. But to be able to just say, well, I'm just going to throw that off my shoulder and I'm going to leave it to God to figure that out, because I am going to be diligent in what I'm called to do. So be encouraged. There were angles in the wall, and there are angles where we are going to meet up with other people that don't have parallel lines with us. They are intersecting, and we intersect at that point. And our work comes together, and guess what? The wall gets finished, and God gets glorified throughout the process because he's the one leading. So have an awesome day, and I'll see you again tomorrow on Daily Revelations. Bye, everybody.